Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at my cat because he's in the room and he's being a total pain in the ass today. No, this is the SDCC exclusive Marvel Legends Incredible Hulk, which is basically the same release as the one we're going to be getting in the 2-pack with the first appearance of Wolverine. Different color scheme, different head, and we have an accessory with this one. So I know a lot of people are very interested. Do I want to get this one or should I wait for the 2-pack? What should I do? Well, I'm going to give you some information about this figure. You're going to have to make the decision for yourself though. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 21.5 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to 8.5 inches. And if you're curious how big that is compared to your average Marvel Legends figure, here is the Bucky Cap build, which is the most widely used average Marvel Legends figure. He comes up just above the nipples, and that's probably pretty good. You know, a lot of the time Hulk is depicted, and I think officially, although he changes in size incredibly, I think he's supposed to be around 9 feet tall. I think that's the most common one. But of course, we've seen him huge and relatively small and all kinds of different things in between. But anyway, that seems like a pretty good size for the collection. I'm not going to compare it to all the different Hulks we've had in the past because they are all vastly different. We have the Face-Off Hulk, which is a very realistic looking Hulk, like a very organic, natural sculpt. Very little articulation, but it looks really good. Then we have the 2-pack Hulk, which is a crazy comic looking one, which poses for crap, but looks like what it's supposed to look like. And then we have all the old ones, which look junky. So it's not really something to compare across different versions. It's just a matter of if you like this one or not. So as far as aesthetics go, on camera, it looks like his arms and head are vastly different than his torso in terms of the green color. It's not anywhere near as noticeable in real life. Obviously, this is a harder plastic. These are softer plastics. They're not going to look exactly the same. In real life, you don't notice the difference here so much, but the head does stand out a little bit. It does look much worse on camera, though. So if that's something you need to consider, that is something you should definitely consider. They didn't do any shading across the green. They did paint the veins, though, and those look awesome. Okay, I shouldn't say they didn't do any shading. If you look at his head, there is shading on his face. And so that's pretty good. It gives it a nice look. And then, like I said, the head is different from this one in the 2-pack. I personally prefer the sculpt of the 2-pack one, but I don't hate this one. I like it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It depends which version you like, though. It's all subjective there. The only real problem with this one, it's kind of hard to tell because it's recessed in his mouth. The way they painted the mouth, it's all one darker green color, and the tongue sculpt is so subtle that it just looks kind of like he's just got a big dark green mouth hole, and it's a little weird, but it's not terrible. Now, as for the pants, they are kind of shiny, which is unfortunate. I don't really like that too much, but they do have the dark purple with light purple throughout, so that looks really nice. Light purple looks like a dry brush, or maybe they did a heavy wash of dark purple. Can't really say for sure, but it looks really good. And then we do have a white dry brush type effect down here at the torn parts, and then the green parts of skin poking through are actually done really nicely as well. So the pants look fantastic. I love that. And then they did paint the fingernails and the toenails, so that's a nice little touch. Makes him come to life a little bit better. So as far as the coloring goes of the aesthetic, it's really nice. This one's a much darker green than the other one. The other one's going to be more of that neon color. So if you like that, that's a good thing. If you don't, that's a bad thing. As far as the sculpt goes, well, it's good and bad. He's very bubbly looking. I know a lot of people are probably going to like this and some people are going to hate it. I personally prefer a look that aligns more with like this artwork where it actually looks like organic muscles. How you can see the pec is like sticking out from underneath here, these rib muscles. Whereas here it's all just one big plane. So he's just kind of one big block. And it's not the worst thing in the world. It could be better for my tastes. It could be better anatomically speaking, but we are talking about the Hulk, so you have a lot of leeway. It really good just comes down to what you like. So if you like the bubbly look, then that's fine. If you don't, well, that's a problem. The only real problem as far as aesthetics go is down here at the elbow. There's really no need for that giant claw of an elbow sticking out. That should stop right where the joint stops rather than sticking all the way down. That's really silly. But otherwise, it's pretty good, I guess. So that's good. So aesthetically speaking, I'm going to give this guy, I will give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. I think an 8 is fair because they could have done a lot better with the muscles. They could have. Objectively, they could have done a lot better. His pecs are very, very round. like all the way up to his clavicle, and that's just not really how pecs work. You can get really big round pecs, but they still have to have the right pec shape, and these just really don't. If you want a good comparison, I don't have mine on hand, but if you look at the Venom, the Monster Venom Beth, his chest is sculpted beautifully. It's a really good example. Okay, so moving on to the accessories, we have this pipe. That's it. I think this is stupid. First of all, it's a terrible sculpt. No matter how strong you are, metal can't bend like that. So this pipe would be very thick in real life. Whatever it is, it would be a very thick material. No matter how strong you are, it's just not going to fold over that much because there's not that much material there. It just wouldn't work. So it's a terrible sculpt, and I would guess that they stole this from something else. If they made this specifically for this, what a waste of a mold. Because what we don't have is fist hands for both sides. So as far as I'm concerned, accessories are a 4 out of 10. We got one, so it's okay, but 2 fist hands would have been great. Or a gripping hand that wasn't just for holding a pipe would have been great. But, or an alternate, anything really other than a garbage pipe. And I think they did that because the original figure that they're basing this on, the retro thing, came with a pipe. But who gives a crap? Fist hands for Hulk are kind of important. So that kind of blows. Alright, time for the articulation. The head is on a double ball peg. What? That's the best type of joint you can have for a head. But they recessed it all the way down in there, so there's virtually no range. Let me put the head back on and I'll show you. It can't lean back at all. He can look straight ahead. He cannot lean back. He can look down a little bit. His chin gets in the way, but that's okay. So that's reasonable, but he can't lean back at all. He can lean side to side in a natural way. So that's really good. That's way better than their lollipop syndrome. That's awesome. And then you do get your rotation. So it's not a terrible joint. It's just a poor utilization of a double joint, double ball peg, because it's not going anywhere. That kind of blows. But otherwise, it's pretty good. So I like that. For the shoulders, we have our standard ball hinge, but it's lousy. It's terrible because look at how small the shoulder ball is in there. The outer part is way bigger than the part that's actually connected to the joint. That's not how it should be. The whole shoulder area should be carved out and the whole shoulder should be one big ball. There shouldn't be this butt crack in the middle here. That's what's killing the articulation, and it's making it look stupid too. If this had been able to go all the way up into one big shoulder ball, it would have looked so much better because it would have filled in between the shoulder and the pec going in, and then it also wouldn't have had a butt crack, and you'd be able to rotate it. So that really kind of blows. You do get full rotation this way. There is a butterfly joint that goes forward 0. It goes all the way back 90 degrees, which obviously there is some utility to that. It's a very specific sort of utility, and that's just because they were incredibly lazy and didn't want to design pecs that actually look good with a butterfly joint. If their pecs weren't so bubbly, they would have been able to do that more easily. So I understand why they did it, and it does have some utility, but it also sucks because you can't have Hulk bring his arms forward in any capacity other than straight. So no like Hulk smash, none of that kind of stuff at all. You can just do this if you want to, which is, you know, that's helpful, I guess. So that butterfly joint really blows as far as I'm concerned. It's physically functional going backwards, but that's it. Bicep swivel is okay, though you'll notice you can rotate the bicep without rotating the forearm because this actually pegs into here. This is essentially a floating bicep, so it's kind of a hassle to pose, doesn't really affect anything though, so that's okay. Single jointed elbow, just 90 degrees. That's pretty lame, but he's pretty thick, so I guess I'll let it slide. For the wrists, we have a swivel and a hinge, and the wrist cavity is significantly larger than the hand. So there's kind of a big gap going around, and the hands are arguably too small. Hulk is generally depicted with pretty big hands, and they just seem like maybe 10% too small. And I'm guessing that's why that cavity is so big, because the hands were originally bigger. So that does kind of suck. I would like my Hulk, I mean, especially as a bubbly Hulk like this really needs big hands. And his are just big enough. They're not too small, but they could definitely be bigger, and I think that's why we have that issue, so be aware of that. For the torso, we have, I don't know if it's a single or a double, I can't get in there to see, but it's a ball peg combination of some sort, and it leans back pretty far, and the sculpt goes through nicely, so that's good. And it leans forward pretty far, and the sculpt doesn't really have to go through, but it does well enough, so that's pretty good. It does lean side to side, not the farthest we've ever seen, but it does work, so that's nice. Rotation up here is nothing, so don't even bother, and you could ruin your figure by doing it by forcing it. just use the waist twist, which is obviously ugly. There's not much they could have done about that other than use a ball joint. So that would have been ideal, but that's not what Hasbro does, so that's to be expected. For the hips, we have our standard Marvel Legends hips, which don't go forward really at all. That's pretty trash. That's all but worthless. You can bring them out like that. Whoa, that's really helpful, right? You can pose them very, very, very dynamically like that. So hips going forward suck. They don't go back. Out to the side, they go better than most figures do. Although they are really floppy. Really, really floppy hips. So that kind of blows. Thigh swivel is fine, obviously. Double jointed knees work nicely. For a big guy, that's fine. Ankle hinge goes really far back. And if you give it a little bit of force, they go far enough forward, so that's pretty good. Then you get a decent enough ankle rocker out of that swivel hinge, but there's no swivel up here, so they're just stuck at a really odd angle. And so his legs are pretty garbage, mostly because of the hips. The ankles are good enough. So articulation-wise on this guy, he's just okay. He's just good enough. And okay, so I wasn't expecting it to be great because it's Hulk and it's bulky, but the decisions they made weren't out of necessity. They were just poor implementations of engineering. So articulation on this guy is only going to get a 6 out of 10 for me. Having the shoulders not be able to move forward at all, but still putting a butterfly joint in seems like a total waste of money. The elbows are definitely more limited than they need to be, and they're ugly. The hips don't go forward at all. The ankles come off at a really steep angle. It's just not a great batch of articulation. So articulation's only going to be a 6 out of 10. And now it's time for the final verdict. Do I personally like this figure? I do. I pretty much enjoy it overall. Objectively, though, it does have a lot of problems. So it's really just going to come down to what you like and what you care about, which is really the case with every review I've ever made. I list off the information, and you guys can decide what to do with that. For me personally, I'm happy to have it. I don't think it's as good as it should have been, especially since we've been waiting about 1 million years for a new Hulk, and they had all the time they needed to engineer it. I feel like they just kind of half-assed it again, but it's also not terrible. So personally, I like it. Objectively, I like it less, but it's not terrible. So final verdict is going to be a 7 out of 10. It's very average for a decent figure release. It's not going to impress you other than in sheer size, and it's not going to really disappoint you other than it could have been so much better. That's really where it is. So there it is, guys. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, and if you haven't subscribed, you might want to consider doing it. I have new videos up just about every single day, and I have thousands of other videos already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.